Hello, everybody. Welcome to Irongeek Cast number 182, Goose. I'm not sure why it was called Goose. I'm assuming that was Frank's decision. This is not the
Yeah,
Frank.
because last week's was called Duck. So
Oh, okay.
Duck Goose. We could have gone with Duck again, and then next week it could have been Goose. But yeah, I jumped the gun a little.
That makes sense. We can go for bird thing for I'm concerned.
Alrighty,
How's everybody doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Darren?
Oh, dude, I'm doing okay. Just living the dream still.
Yeah, Darren, you're like the last of the old time streamers that are still here. Everyone else is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll be back at some point.
Hopefully, but we never know. Maybe they don't love me anymore.
And you got to show your support for Adrian, man.
Shit, man. I'm getting shit from all sorts of people don't know what the fuck's going on, but they whine a lot on. Oh, I got some dude preaching to me about growing and so forth. By growing, he means absorb my ideology that I picked up in San Francisco because I'm whiny as fuck.
Yeah. It's very easy to be a big man behind a keyboard, but you know.
Who added feed my nipples to the damn show notes?
That's been there for like the past 4 casts, and I don't know where it came from.
I'm gonna delete that. Okay.
Alrighty. So once again, we got the achievement unlocked this cast where we finished the entire alphabet in the show notes.
Yeah, you added a lot of shit.
Did I? Not that much.
How do y'all feel about me opening this up to some more people?
Go for it, man.
I mean, as long as it's not just like randos, it's someone at least semi-vetted.
Let's get all the trolls in here. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem is if I don't do it pretty wide, no one's gonna join.
I mean, at least give some form of vetting. I mean, I'm actually good thing about StreamYard is you can actually, choose to let them in or not. So.
Oh, you can.
So that's at least something good. So if you go, hey, who?
People.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll just go ahead and do Twitter. Yeah. We'll see what happens. What's the worst that can happen?
Oh, looks like we lost
Frank?
Frank, yeah.
I was in the other window.
I saw him messing with his camera. Maybe he accidentally closed a tab or something.
Devices not connected.
Does he actually like still show up in the stream, or is he like out?
In my studio, it says devices not connected.
Okay, so maybe he unplugged his camera by accident. Okay.
All right, there he is. And now he has no cam, but it's got snap camera, which I assume is some app for like manipulating your camera.
Frank, you there? It looks like we're having some technical difficulties.
And I see Frank again.
What the happy hell happened here?
And I added in test also.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We
All
hear you,
right.
Frank.
So I went to go move my camera, and guess what happened? It unplugged. And then when I plugged it back in, it became a different device somehow, and I had to exit and come back in.
What are you running Windows or Linux on your rig?
This rig is running Windows at the moment.
By the way, if I step out, I won't be able to quickly switch to someone else's screen if that's the case. I don't know if anybody else has that ability. I'm not sure what you see as guests in the stream.
Alrighty.
Just letting you know.
Yeah, so we should be good now. All right. So this week we've got a whole bunch of crap in the show notes because Frank had about an hour during lunch, and I've found a new method of finding articles very quickly and putting them in the show notes. So, yeah. First thing I'm going to cover today is a tool I came across in my journeys here. And if you could, I'm trying to share my screen, but nobody sees it yet. So hold on 1 second. Let's make sure I'm sharing the right screen. That's sheet screen 3, screen 1. There we go. You guys should see my screen now. Do you see it?
No, Adrian.
No, I have to add it. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Technical difficulties.
Oh,
All right.
and welcome, Delchi.
Welcome.
Tally ho! I thought it was an ad saying, "Hey, try this new streaming thing," and then y'all were here. So, surprise!
Yeah, man, we're pushing it. Oh, we like this interface. It's nice.
Pushing the envelope.
If we decide to pay some money for it, we can get rid of the stupid ad in the top right. And that would be great. So, in our show notes this week, the first thing we've got to look at is a tool. And this tool is, of course, hosted on GitHub, like most of our hacker tools are. And it kind of reminds me of some old school tools where you would maybe replace the login screen with like a fake login screen, and then somebody'd enter their passwords into it, right? But this one's a little bit more stealthy. And this one, essentially, if you've got like regular user access to a Linux machine, you don't have a root level access, you can kind of stealthily copy this into the bash RC file if you have access to right to it. And if you do that, you can essentially, whenever somebody goes to use sudo, it logs it, and then it can send it over DNS to a server that you control, which is neat. And it can also grab SSH keys and some other stuff. Pretty neat. Not all that complicated, but still could be useful tradecraft wise if you are having some privilege escalation problems.
I was actually looking some of this over. Yeah, I've actually seen similar attacks native, or well, I guess in the wild against SSH. Usually, they use a modified version of SSHD to actually decrypt your passwords in real time and write them somewhere or upload them somewhere. So this is kind of like a lightweight version of that.
Yeah.
In order to actually do the SSH and SU password, though, you have to have root. So that's kind of the it's
if you've got root, there's no point.
Well, I mean, there's a point. It could be if you've got root, you may not actually have a persistent root because you may not have access to your account. You may have done privilege escalation. So this is a way to gain persistent root, because once you have the root password or the ability to become a user that has got root, then, but yeah.
True that. Next up in our show notes, we've got an article about how the GHCQ, which is like the NSA for Britain, and the NSA itself, are intercepting and infiltrating virtual private networks. We know from the leaks that came out, there's Dark Sunrise, Turmoil, Turbulence, Pinwaffle, and they actually have a team called the OTP VPN Exploitation Team. And this article covers a few of the different ways that they can kind of snoop on what you're doing when you're in a VPN and you're trying to hide what you're doing. The first one is passive signals intelligence, incoming traffic estimation, entry points, yada, yada, yada. It pretty much is like what you can see without actually having like a tap interface on the freaking VPN, like what you can gather without doing that. And then you got active signals intelligence, which is outgoing traffic estimation. This is where you have some level of access to the exit point, and you're trying to de-anonymize the traffic of the users inside the network. We've also got session matching techniques, target identifiers being harvested, and reuse of passwords. They talk about wiretap-ready VPN service providers, where they turn over their stuff to a top-secret program called Boundless Informant, where people think they're getting some nice VPN service, and it's actually just being forwarded to the relevant authorities if they're doing sketchy shit. There's public key credential harvesting as well, which allows them to de-anonymize and measure activities. And VPN providers, internal passive signals intelligence research procedures. That's when the intelligence community attempts to actually infiltrate and benchmark actual VPN providers. Yeah. And it talks about how you can be a little bit more anonymous by doing things like, talking about double or triple VPN providers. I don't know about that, but I mean, apparently you can do that.
Double or triple VPN, chaining VPN.
The old kind of joke on behind whatever amount of proxies.
Seven proxies, I think was the
7 proxies. Yeah.
I mean, in theory, you could do that, but that's kind of a dumb thing to do.
Plus, it's gonna make your speed kind of like using the onion routing protocol. It's here to here.
This takes me back to a project I did years ago called DBS, which unfortunately stands for Donkey Ball Soup. It was an automated script using Expect and AWS that built chain proxies across the AWS space, 3 at a time. So from you to hop 1 to hop 2 to hop 3, each in different regions. And it was self-setting up and self-destructing. And it was better than any VPN I've ever played with, because it was like once you were done with your session, it was gone.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
I'll be back in about 15 minutes.
Say again?
I'll be back in about 15 minutes.
All right. Let's hope nobody drops in that time.
I'll probably drop in that time. Who knows? But it should auto reconnect.
So we've got a they're recommending a VPN provider in this article called Crypto Hippie that I've never heard of before. And they talk about how you can configure.
Is everything okay? I just pulled my laptop off the fucking table.
Yeah, you're still here.
Yep. So you can configure an actual hardware device, like a little mini travel router, so that it acts as your VPN gateway, and all the traffic on your network is then routed through that VPN. It talks about some different routers, open source shit that you can use, like pfSense. Article goes on a little bit more, talking about nation-state adversaries being able to kind of decrypt VPN traffic for commercial-grade VPN providers, and talks about, again, pushing Crypto Hippie. So I'm starting to wonder if they maybe somebody who wrote this article, this guy, maybe he works for Crypto Hippie or something, but I've never heard of them before.
It doesn't say anything about avoiding some of the obvious stuff, though. Like, you can have the greatest wrapped VPN with everyone swearing on a Bible that they won't log you and all this other happiness, but all it takes is one JavaScript link to say, oh, here you are. Here's your home address. Or one misconfigured browser to just leak everything they would need to trick you anyway. It's funny, nobody talks about that.
So in the first chapter of this book, they actually talk about setting up your environment if you're going to be doing sketchy shit, even if you're going to be doing OSINT, so that you're not really very trackable. So it talks about customizing Firefox so that you use pretty much containers for every single tab, and you keep everything segmented as much as possible, and you keep it on a VM on a different physical machine than the one you normally use to do your day-to-day shit.
Yep.
Good read.
Yeah. What's that book?
Open Source Intelligence Techniques.
Okay.
It's a pretty good book.
Even if you don't take it that far, I mean, there's lots of tools you can get for Firefox. I won't even say Chrome, but for Firefox, you can block, use the NoScript to block, various scripting languages. There's Privacy Badger, Ghostery.
Yeah, so I love Firefox, but I'm kind of upset that they laid off most of their security.
Oh, I saw that. It was like, that was bullshit. Now that they've done
that, I'm starting to wonder if the browser is going to start to suffer in upcoming releases, because they've only been right on shit when stuff happens. They update the browser right away to fix vulnerabilities. Now, as the team that does that stuff is no longer with them, I'm starting to wonder if maybe Chrome might be a more viable browser for security, but then there's all the shit that Chrome forwards your traffic to and all that.
Well, there's also a lot of forks of Firefox, like was it not? I think it's Iceweasel or something like that. There's a lot of them that are forked off of that one, that are designed to be
What the
more.
odds the forks are getting the upstream security updates?
Well, I mean, they are. They're developing stuff in real time. Usually, they're getting upstream, or they're building their own releases, etc. So, and they're usually coordinating with Mozilla for those. So, hopefully, someone somewhere is at least keeping things in check. That's kind of the workings of the open source community.
True that. Next, we have a pretty good one. This is talking about attackers are using a high severity zero-day and Cisco gear to exhaust memory resources on some of their routers and some of their other equipment that's used in ISPs. So this is pretty much very similar to the ping of death, if you're familiar with that. This is using IGMP protocol traffic, and it is using it in such a way that the box itself is not queuing things up properly with different when you send IGMP traffic of different lengths and shit like that, it essentially can't handle it, and the machine becomes unstable, which once it's unstable and out of memory, that opens it up to other stupid attacks you might be able to do to get different kinds of access. But in order for this to work, it needs to be running DVMRP, which is one of their routing protocols. Now, Cisco has a whole bunch of different routing protocols, but if you're running all Cisco shit, you're probably running EIGRP. And if you're using that, you're probably not going to be vulnerable to this. And even if you are using one of the other routing protocols like IGRP, EIGRP,
OSPF.
there's path, multipath, yeah. Distance vector is the one that is vulnerable. So if you are running this particular protocol for your routing, which a lot of ISPs do, it's probably a good idea to turn that off because it makes it vulnerable to this ping queuing flaw. And some bad actors are crashing lots of shit because why not? Excellent. Next, we have Apple accidentally signing some malware, which is always fun. So if you are in this space where you do some kind of system monitoring and you've got some Macs on your network, you've probably come across OSX.Slayer. It is probably the most common Mac malware out there at this point. And it usually spreads through things like fake Flash Player updates that pop up on web pages. And if you click OK, eventually it brings you to the install screen to install something. And then you click OK because you want to update Flash and you install some malware. This one actually was signed because Apple actually has this thing where you can submit code ahead of time to them. They will check it and essentially they sign it and say this code's okay. And then next time somebody tries to run that code on a Mac, they will not get a pop-up saying this is unsigned code. Are you sure you want to run it? So they signed some malware. So people who installed that malware did not realize they were installing that because that one prompt that might have given them a hint that this is not something that is legitimate was not there. And it is, of course, spreading, it says in the article somewhere, through the, Control F, Flash, where is, that's not an L. Yeah. So it's Flash Player updates this time. So they go to like a website, for instance, they want to grab this tool that you can use for Mac package management, right? And rather than go to the official website for it, they do maybe a Bing search for it. And in those Bing search results comes up a different site than the official one. They click that, they go there, they install what they think is the program, and the next thing you know, they've got malware. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Moving forward. Mac malware. I love how people on Macs don't think they can get malware, and then they get their system pwned. And they're like, I don't understand. I thought Macs couldn't get malware. We've got some Android shit next. It's kind of similar. malicious apps sometimes make it into the App Store. If you are an Android user, you're probably using the Google Play Store, but there are also third-party app stores, and those stores tend to have a lot more malware-ridden apps in them than the official Google Play Store. But the official store itself apparently had some apps, about 6 of them, that had this Joker malware, right? And this Joker malware is hilarious because what it does is once you have it installed on your phone, it starts sending text messages using its own text message thing that you don't see in your text messages app to phone numbers that charge money to receive text messages. So kind of like the toll fraud back in the day of premium 800 numbers that are actually 900 numbers that, you get charged for. Same kind of shit, but with text messages. So there are over 1,700 apps, right, that contain this Joker malware in the Play Store since 2017. But most recently, they got 6 more of them, and they removed them from their store. Click fraud's a big thing too with some of these apps, where they will open up little browser windows that you don't see that go and generate revenue for the bad actors. All sorts of fun shit in Apple malicious apps, as well as Android malicious apps, and all that crap. Next, unless anybody has anything they want to say about these Android apps. Nothing? Alrighty. We've got Pioneer Kitten. Pioneer Kitten is the Iranian advanced persistent threat group, right? And they are now selling corporate access to resources that they have hacked. They're also known as, I think, Phosphorus, maybe? Phosphorus? Where is it? It's probably in here somewhere. They got a few names. And they mainly hack stuff like open Windows RDP stuff and VPNs that are vulnerable, but they have also recently been using Citrix exploits, like the ADC exploit, Pulse Secure exploits, and also the Big IP load balancer exploits. So they are gaining access to all sorts of crap. And I guess if they can't figure out a way to monetize it themselves, they just sell access to it. I guess it's one way to go. Yep, Phosphorus, the same group. I knew it. So CrowdStrike has, of course, done a whole bunch of reporting on this group, and they've also had a campaign recently where they're using LinkedIn and WhatsApp to convince targets, including Israeli university scholars and government employees in the U.S., to click on malicious links so they can steal their credentials. Comments, thoughts, feelings. Darren, how do you feel about this article?
I mean, fishing is fishing.
Fishing is fishing. Except when it's vishing.
Oh, and I might add whaling or veiling. I found a bunch of these recently. I found that people have been renaming these things, and they're creeping their way into certification exams.
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
They're renaming like specific kinds of a certain attack, like for example, spearfishing
becomes vishing with a V, and spearfishing became whaling. It's like, so the logic behind this, if you can follow it, is that spearfishing is, in theory, targeted phishing attacks.
Yeah.
You're going after a specific person. Unless you're going after a sea-level person, then it becomes whaling.
I mean, it makes sense because you're Captain Ahab going for his white whale in that case.
Right.
I can see the logic behind it, but it just seems kind of like pointlessly specific.
The thing for me is that it's legitimizing slang. And slang is great if you're sitting around Buffalo Wild Wings, chugging beers and trying to call each other out on what you know and don't know. Like that scene in Hackers, where they pull out the colored books and all that, and you're elite and you're not. But, I mean, where does that belong in a professional certification? Where you lose points if you don't know the difference between fishing and whaling and spearfishing.
Yeah, it's a little silly.
Yeah.
So looking around, got those Crayola books.
Look at that.
Technicolor rainbow. Yeah. Green one. Where is it? Let me see. Where are these? International Unix environments. Plus, just orange. Computer security criteria, DoD standards. Big shirt book, guide to IBM.
It's like a dick measuring contest.
Has there been any good hacking movies made in like the last 10 years?
Well, no. What was it? Firewall was actually not that bad.
Okay, I don't think I've seen that one.
That was Harrison Ford. It came out, I think 15 years ago. It was okay.
The Harrison Ford version of Die Hard 3.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they did make a few small technical goofs, but by and large, their tech babble was pretty low. It was actually pretty accurate.
The other ones that people always cite is usually War Games and crap. What's that one with Robert Redford?
Sneakers.
Oh yeah.
Which I just assume not care about because of the ending, but that's me.
Well, I mean, Sneakers at least gives a throwback to some of the original people. Like the character Whistler is based on an actual person.
Yeah. There was a black guy who was a foam freaker who could whistle 2,600 hertz. Wasn't that the case?
Yep.
He was like blind or something, and
I like how Die Hard is considered one of the top 10 hacking movies of all time.
Die Hard is.
Well, because they were hacking, and part of the heist. They were hacking in the computer system to open the vault or whatever. So
it definitely touches on the broader definition of hacking.
Yeah, the funny thing is, while in the Matrix itself, one more realistic films about hacking is actually like the Matrix. While they're in the Matrix, just excluding all the other stuff, while in the Matrix.
Well, I mean, hell yeah! In the beginning of Matrix 2, Trinity uses Nmap and some random SSH exploit. So I was like,
and that would cause a whole slew of T-shirts that said Trinity is a script kiddie. Somebody made that here at DEF CON.
Yeah.
Let's admit it, though.
Trinity was the one who hacked the IRS D-base, man.
A lot of people are script kiddies. I even admit myself that I'm usually using other people's tools the majority of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's okay to use somebody else's tool, but you should at least understand how it works. If you're using tools and you don't even understand how they work, then you're opening yourself up to a world of trouble.
Well, you're going to get nailed. You're going to get nailed to two pieces of wood, biblical style, because you're not going to change things like, oh, look, this says Metasploit in the HTTP header. I see so much of that stuff. I literally have rules in my IDS looking through the headers to look for that, and they always, every week, they always hit.
Right. So, like you're saying, there's actually one of our articles talks a little bit about, skip to it if I can find it, talks about how a lot of threat actors, about 60% of them now, are using Cobalt Strike to spread their ransomware.
Oh, by the way,
than traditional hacking tools and toolkits. Like they have a cracked copy of Cobalt Strike, and they just use that. They use the beacon shell, and that's usually enough to get past most shitty IDS systems. Like if you're running the basic Metasploit HTTP connect back, right? That's going to get caught. But if you're using like a beacon shell that doesn't ping back at the same time, it's like interval based, and it's a little bit harder to see unless you've got familiarity as a SOC person using some of the other tools like Rita to kind of do some beacon analysis. But not many people really do that in most SOCs.
Barry was saying, what was it? Black Hat was more accurate. I guess it's pretty good. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie.
Which movie?
Some movie called Black Hat.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, they need to do some more. See, the problem with making an authentic hacker movie is when you're hacking something, you could be spending hours just doing like, some basic enumeration stuff, and that's not going to
a lot of fucking typing.
What had something interesting in it that most people missed was Tron Legacy.
What was in there that was awesome?
Now, Tron Legacy is basically the Big Lebowski 2. Okay, it's the dude sitting there in his bathrobe talking about his chi. It's just he's inside of a computer. But that first part of it during the beginning, where the kid stumbles on his dad's computer and he runs history, and you see all the history commands down there, and you can see where they used a flag file in order to prevent the laser from firing unless the flag file had been touched. And they were all legitimate commands, and they were like multi-step safeguards to keep the laser from firing. And you had to enter the commands in the right order, and using the history command to see what his dad did. That was pretty impressive.
Interesting.
The problem is you got to really look for it, and you got to like screen grab it. I screen grabbed it to show people as like a quiz thing. It's like, what did this come from? And they had no idea.
I like how in Mr. Robot, they actually do use the tools that hackers use. They don't necessarily always use them the right way, and sometimes they kind of exaggerate what some of the tools are actually capable of, but they at least use the same tools. It's like they're not completely making
Well, you can't make a TV show that says, here's how you hack 101. They're going to have to put something in there to prevent you from using it. Like, I watched National Treasure last night, and they did the whole fingerprint lifting thing. And, they forgot that you have to flip the fingerprint in order to make a negative image to put onto the reader and yakety schmackety. And that's a common thing that people leave out, or they make a big deal out of it. They say,
lockpicking movies they have like upside down.
Yeah. It's like, we're not going to tell you exactly how to do this because that would be wrong, but there is a step missing. And, you're like, okay. Wag that disclaimer.
Sure.
You mentioned lockpicking movies, and a lot of them like here we'll just put the tension rake in there. We won't actually put a lever in there to turn the lock, and it's like they'll wiggle the tension rake and it's unlocked. It's like okay, and there's some that like actually I know the guy's working there for a minute or two, with both tools and actually doing what he's supposed to be doing. So
yeah, the TV show I think it was called Sherlock. I'm not sure. It's about Sherlock Holmes set in the modern day. It's got actually, strange enough, Tommy Lee Miller, is that the guy who was in Sneakers? It's actually got him as playing Sherlock, and then it's got Lucy Liu playing Watson.
You're talking about
Elementary, maybe?
Elementary, yeah.
Okay, I didn't remember what the title of it was.
So do you know why they always portray Sherlock Holmes as kind of a distant, almost autistic kind of guy?
Because he was on opium half of his life?
Probably that's part of it, but the other part is the estate of Conan Doyle, Sir Conan Arthur Doyle, whatever his name is, Arthur Conan Doyle. They sue anybody who portrays Sherlock as having any kind of compassionate characteristics because those were in the later novels, and those novels are still out of the public domain. So you can use the earlier novels all you want, but the later stuff, they will sue you if you make him seem compassionate because that's too real for essentially they're trying to make money off of that,
What is the copyright extension at this point? My understanding Disney keeps increasing. It's what I always hear, but
Disney has actually lobbied the copyright system and they've gotten laws passed so they can keep their shit in copyright.
Because otherwise, Steamboat really, Mickey Mouse would long be public domain.
Well, it should be. I mean,
but like I said, you don't touch the mouse. I mean, there's a machine behind that, and machines get things done. I mean, in this industry, in this country, yeah, the law says X. Here's $500,000. It now says Y. Oh, it says Y now.
And if you make a slight modification to the character, right, you can re-copyright it and have it last for a whole bunch more years. Just like you can do in Big Pharma, where you make one change to a drug and then you can extend its the amount of time you can sell it and not have it go generic. All right.
Got to make money somehow.
What?
You got to make money somehow.
Exactly. Speaking of making money, a lot of WordPress sites are owned.
Oh, no. Shock.
Again. So this time, the exploit, the low-hanging fruit that everyone's going after is the File Manager plugin that's got more than 70,000 installs, and about 52% of them are affected, and it's already been incorporated into people's scanning botnet type shit to automate the attack process. It's a pretty simple hack when you look at how it works. Essentially, you're able to upload a JPEG file, all right, and then you can rename that JPEG file using a different command and turn it into your. So the JPEG file is not really a JPEG; it's really your malicious script, right? And you can upload that without actually being authenticated, and then you can rename it to whatever extension you want. So like if it were an IIS server, it'd be .aspx, right? Or if it's a Nginx server, you could do .php, whatever. So
there was someone who's done with, was it like TIFFs or something way back in the day about that, or maybe it was a different vector format.
All right, so essentially you just rename it to like say x.php instead of x.jpg, and now you've got a script on the server that's running as the user running the server. So you can maybe have that do like a netcat connect back to your machine, whatever you want. You could futz with it. There's lots of different ways to exploit it. Any exploit that lets people upload shit without putting it where you want it to be, it's not good. So it uploads it right into the WP file /manager lib files directory, and then you can just navigate to that folder using the file structure of the website and execute your code. Fun stuff. It's been fixed, but most people who are running it are not running the new version yet. So if you are running WordPress, first of all, you should be running one of those plugins that automatically updates all your plugins. And like from a practical standpoint, I can understand why you wouldn't run that, because I've dealt with issues in production where we've run those kind of plugins and it has crashed the server. So I understand it, but at the same time, if you're not updating your WordPress shit, you're going to get owned. So it's to kind of pick between possible instability or the whole server getting pwned.
Isn't it just so typical, though? I mean, every time you hear about a WordPress site being pwned, it's like you want to give them the Captain Lewis for an alt award. It's just like, let's have some eighth party write a plugin, and they don't care about security, and oh my god, it makes the screen blue. I got to have that, and next thing you know, 30,000 people are infected. I mean, where's the common sense? Where are the sysadmins?
Well, two things on that. One, there's the old joke of, WordPress is a handy remote shell that, as a useful feature, contains a blog. And the second one is, I remember my days working web hosting, and the number one problem we had was some dipshit on shared hosting would have a WordPress site that had like 50 plugins installed to do various things, and because of that, their site performed like absolute shit and would suck up tons of CPU memory on the server. So we had to go, hey, change your shit, disable some of that shit, or move to a dedicated platform, because you're gonna kill everyone. You're gonna kill all the other 100 people on here who are performing just fine without your shit. So,
and not to mention the security aspect, where half those plugins could let somebody get a shell on your server.
We're still in that golden age where web developers are sort of prima donna-ish. Like, I don't have to worry about security. That's somebody else's problem. Let me get this Russian plugin that makes the word "the" spin around. And,
or even worse, get a paid plugin, but you don't want to pay for it, so you find it on the Pirate Bay.
or some Russian was it RussianHacker.org, and there you go. Now you found the same plugin.
You mentioned Pirate Bay. I actually saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw Bill and Ted's Face the Music.
That movie was so bad.
Pirate Bay with a Trojan in it.
Really?
I hadn't seen anything like that in a long time. People like
there was a Trojan in a movie?
Well, no. What they do is they get a big ass padded file, and when you play the file in your video player, it says, "Oops, you need this codec. Go to this website."
Wow, I remember that attack from 2003. Holy shit!
Yeah, that's old school. I remember that when I was running like Media Player Classic before VLC was a thing.
And then this is in VLC. I mean, you play back the video in VLC, you see it's go to badguy.ru to get the codec you need to watch this, and I'm like, wow. And people fall for this.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty clever
I waited a
tactic,
day or
right?
two until the film was released, and then got it again, and it was, there you go, you got the real thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually.
People are still falling for this shit.
If it works, why change it?
Yeah, people are still really dumb.
I haven't seen the codec download attack in a long ass time. Yeah. I remember back in the day when I used to download completely legitimate media that I had the copyright to be able to use. Yes, that's the ticket, and it would do that. But I haven't seen that in a long time.
So as I was saying before about Cobalt Strike, this is the article that talks about it. And this article is about ransomware attacks continue to dominate the threat landscape. It starts off by talking about a little bit about the different groups that are out there doing ransomware shit. It talks about Ryuk, Maze, Lockbit, NetWalker, yada, yada, yada. And then it talks about how Trojans such as Emotet and TrickBot are now relying on Cobalt Strike, powerful toolkit developed for threat emulation and penetration testing. I actually met Raphael Mudge a few times. He's actually a really nice guy, and he will sit down with you and explain how his product works. He's pretty cool.
One question I want to throw out to everybody, because I want to make sure that I'm aligned on this correctly. I understand the ransomware problem. I understand what's going on, but doesn't it not boil down to like people who are getting pwned with ransomware are just not doing basic security shit, not patching their box, not patching their software, and people are getting in, and that's how ransomware is getting in.
Usually it's something dumb like that. More often than not, you have a sysadmin who knows nothing about security. Now we have to do some remote working, so people are going to be working from home. They don't know how to enable remote from home, so they'll be like, okay, I'll just forward your desktop, RDP to the internet. And somebody just brute forces it and gets in, and once they're in, they just spread everywhere.
Yeah, because they don't have file shares locked down, or a lot of people have, especially at small companies, have admin everywhere because it's easier that way.
Right, and some companies will have like a local admin account that they use the same password for on every machine. So you crack the hash of that local admin account, and it's usually very easy.
How can you be in business and do that?
I know counties government counties that are.
Well, yeah, no, government's a whole other ballgame. I said business. Government, I expect it to be a single root password for every machine across 3 different countries. I expect that kind of crap from government. From individual companies, I mean, especially now, when everyone is riding the baloney pony of certifications, okay, everyone has to click the checkbox that says no, you don't share root accounts, no, you don't do this, and then they turn around and do it. It's like, I know people who think that ransomware is some kind of bizarre, advanced, alien, tactic, and it's not. It's just it's a unique exploitation of low-hanging fruit, which you shouldn't have out there in the first place.
Right. That being said, I have seen some pretty unique ways people have gotten into systems. One of my favorites is actually, I could probably talk about this. If I can't, maybe I'll lose my job. Anyway, so we had a client who's out in the middle of the ocean on a super yacht, right? And they've got a NAS box on the boat that everyone uses as a file share. And that NAS box has a web interface that connects back to the provider of the NAS software, where you can log into it remotely, and then you can do anything you could do locally. So the attacker was able to get the username and password to log into the NAS box, right? And from there, because this was pretty powerful hardware, they were actually able to spin up a VM on the NAS itself. And they just loaded all their attack tools onto the VM, and then they did some poisoning of network traffic, where they ran like responder, and then grabbed a couple of passwords, and then laterally moved throughout the network. It's pretty cool, actually. That shit happens. I mean, there are some more advanced attacks out there, but you're right. Most of them happen to be low-hanging fruit. Silence. You still here, Delchi?
I'm still here too.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, so am I.
All right. I just everyone's silent.
Sorry, I muted myself by accident.
It's all good. So anyway, this article I was talking about anyway. Cobalt Strike is surprisingly one of the tools that a lot of the bad guys use. And that costs like $4,000 if you're going to buy it for real. And it goes on. They also use TeamViewer because a lot of idiots will install TeamViewer because they want to work from home, and then they will remote into their systems, right? And if you're using older versions of TeamViewer, you can actually brute force the PIN to log into the computer. And newer versions of TeamViewer are more secure, and they will even sometimes two-factor before you can log in. But most people prefer things easier rather than more secure, so they don't enable those features. They talk about how data. So this is one new thing that's kind of happening with ransomware that is really scary. Is they will exfiltrate a shit ton of your data, and then if you don't pay the ransom, they will do many bad things with that data. Some of which will be maybe giving it away for free on their website, but sometimes they'll also auction it off to other groups who are interested in that data. They do all sorts of stuff with your data that you don't want done with it. So if you don't pay, even if you can restore from backups, now you have that to worry about. Yep. Talks about some basic security things you can do at the bottom of the article to kind of maybe not be as susceptible to a ransomware attack. Of course, backups is a big one. Remove domain users from the admin group. Yeah, hopefully you do that. Improve endpoint detection. Have something on the machine. Establish the right policies. That would be maybe disabling PowerShell from running on most computers. And of course, using a strong email solution that filters out a lot of the spam and phishing stuff. And they don't talk about it here, but user training is another big one. Teaching your users not to click on fishes by maybe doing phishing yourself, doing some adversary emulation type shit where you get some really clever fishes and then you send them to your people. And if they click those fishes, guess what? They have to go sit through an hour-long training on why they shouldn't click a fish. Yep. That's some cool shit you can do. Yeah. Next, we've got Magento. So Magento, if you are unfamiliar with it, is Mage, like Mage Cart, right? So plugins, right? We were just talking about plugins for WordPress and how stupid that is. Well, there's a plugin for Magento, which is a shopping cart type software you can run on the web server. That there are two flaws actually in one of the plugins, and one of them has been fixed, and the other one hasn't. And the flaws, one of them will allow for CSRF. Now that's not that bad, but if you can trick an admin into clicking a link, you can now steal their creds. Because you can log into the site as them. Yeah. Kind of hard to do practically, but that's probably why I got a 6.8 rather than a higher one. So like CSRF, you can do shit with like beef. If I just Google beef, it's going to bring me pictures of cows. Beef hacking tool, maybe. That works. All right, so Beef is a tool you can use if you are a hacker. If you've got a site that's got some cross-site scripting shit going on, you can fire up Beef, upload a file, hook some JavaScript in there, and you are able to get the essentially, if a user is on a website, you can impersonate that user as long as they've got that tab open for that website. So using Beef, if like users got their Gmail account open, you can go in and see all their Gmail stuff, right? There's different things you can do with it. I've played with it a little bit. I think Charles actually gave a demo on Beef a while back. It's a good tool to know. And if you were to find a site with this vulnerability, you could probably use Beef to exploit it practically, which is good. Hack all the things. Next, we've got... All right, so fall's coming up, right? And people are going back to school. Some businesses are starting... well, not starting, but they're pushing the whole work from home thing because of the plague that's going around. And this leads to a recipe for cybersecurity nightmares this fall, because we've got a whole bunch of companies implementing work from home and go to school from home that don't have any security experience, and that can be very, very bad. A new report from the Identity Theft Resource Center finds most adults who work from home are also most vulnerable to cyber thieves, and thieves are getting more successful. Workers are clicking on phishing links. They are finding security workarounds that end up exposing their employers to ransomware, malware, and theft of highly sensitive data. Experts stress cyber crooks have had 5 months of this pandemic to refine their tactics, and they've been getting better at it, and it's going to suck. That's pretty much the whole point of that article.
I mean, we've seen a lot of that already, especially with other things. Like, there was a famous YouTuber by the name of Too Mad who was like trolling a lot of people, like going into their Zoom meetings, and they were actually finding out ways to actually get access to Zoom because of exploits. So a lot of these companies are now getting extra attention because they're popular. Before they weren't quite so popular, or they were very low on the attack. What's the word? I guess the
attack surface.
Not so attack surface, but the appeal of the attack. I guess the how desirable they were by an attacker. But now that everyone's using them, they have higher desirability because everyone's using them.
The other thing, especially with Zoom, the thing that bugged me about Zoom was that these weren't really exploits. They weren't actual weaknesses.
Dumb configurations.
It was people just not configuring it correctly. They didn't put a password in there. They shared their links on open public spaces.
Right, and even if you put a password in a Zoom link, you don't have to then type that password when you go to the meeting. It's incorporated into the URL. So if you then share that URL, even if you have a password, it's like your password.
And passwords weren't mandatory, and some people were not using them and saying, "Oh my God, I've been hacked." It's like, no, you just didn't use a password. You didn't set a password. You took your Zoom meeting and put it on a bulletin board in the bathroom, and you want to know why 8 million people have it? It's like they were bagging on Zoom for weeks about, crappy platform, buggy software, when it was just idiot users. I mean, later on, there's some tools came out and maybe an exploit or two were found, but initially it was just misconfigured software because people didn't know what the hell they were doing.
And there was actually this one, it's the 17-year-old hacker, the mastermind behind those Twitter hacks, right? He is having his trial via Zoom, and somehow the link got out for the Zoom meeting, and a whole shit ton of people joined, and a whole bunch were trolling, and then one person realized anybody could do a screen share. So what they do, they started playing porn. Excellent stuff.
What kind of porn?
They probably didn't do any favors for this hacker. It's like, now the judge is going to be like, fuck this guy. Speaking of hacking, New Zealand keeps getting hacked. Lots of hacking going on in New Zealand. It's like the Wild West over there.
By the way, does anybody know what the stats are on the gun confiscation plan? Like how many actually got turned back in?
I've heard it was like 10-15% of what's estimated out there, maybe 20%. So there's a lot that haven't actually been voluntarily turned in.
Okay, just curious.
But I've been paying close attention to it though, because I don't give a shit about New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you like Lord of the Rings, there's that.
It's got some pretty scenery. And
And it's kind of near Australia. I mean, so they've also got a few good TV shows that I've come across. There's one about these people who found that they're reincarnations of the Roman gods, and that was kind of neat. Anyway, so these attacks keep happening in New Zealand. Everything's getting hacked, from their National Weather Service to their stock market. Some places are getting ransomware, and the official advice from the government is do not pay the ransom. It keeps going. It talks about how the bank TSB was hit Tuesday, and the attack disrupted its services, and they're trying to restore another bank, Westpac, successfully repelled an attack of 2 weeks ago and hasn't been hit since. Now, what they mean by successfully repelled an attack of 2 weeks ago could mean lots of things. It probably doesn't mean that they caught it with their SIM and blocked it. It probably means they got hit with ransomware and restored from backups. Met Service is a weather organization there. They got hacked. They managed to stay online, though. And yeah, that's the gist of the article. Everything's getting hacked over there. New Zealand. Speaking of places that are far away, we've also got the Norwegian Parliament. They got breached, and something about emails and stealing sensitive data going on there. Somebody gained access to a bunch of email boxes. They stole unspecified amounts of data from each one of the hacked email accounts. I wonder if this was a case of credential reuse and no two-factor. Just a thought. It could be. It doesn't really give too many details about the hack. But they're recovering from it, whatever that means. Tesla's had some security stuff in the news lately. So this is the one of the better articles about Tesla. It puts them in a good light. One of their employees was bribed by a Russian dude with $1 million if he would put some spy software on the Tesla server in one of their plants. And he said no and turned the Russian dude in, and the guy went to jail. Turn down $1 million for your employer. Pretty good employee. But that's not the only thing that's happened recently with Tesla. They actually had a bug bounty program, and one of the hackers was actually able to gain access to their internal systems and could have done some shit like reroute cars to wherever he wanted them to go, but instead took the bounty. That could have been really bad. So there's that.
And Tesla's getting pretty active out here in Vegas too.
Yeah, they are one of the few companies that are like, they will follow through with these grand gestures as far as paying off the hacking community to let them know about security vulnerabilities. Like beyond the normal bug bounty shit that you see, like they'll give you a freaking Tesla if you tell them about a decent vulnerability in Tesla. That's kind of neat.
I keep bugging them about doing a Tesla powered motorized wheelchair, and they won't even answer me anymore. I'm like, I'll be your fanboy. I'll run it around DEF CON. I'll run it around Vegas, and And then I guess they saw a picture of me and just saw how damn ugly I am and said, "Oh hell no."
Is that why you don't turn your camera on?
Oh yeah. There's no cameras allowed in my office anyway.
What do you work for? The government?
Nope. I just don't want my shit broadcast all over the world. I mean, there's no need for it.
Fair enough.
I mean, we have this thing called the principle of least access. Plus, okay, yes,
Which is not.
I have a no.
Denied.
There's a standard rule here too. I mean, we are the no pants office. No pants are allowed in the office here. So,
I take it you work from home.
yes.
Okay.
As most smart people do. No, the thing I saw was there was some folks test driving some of the tunnels they've made here for the convention center. And there's even been, I mean, somebody just bought the monorail system, but it wasn't Tesla. But they were talking about, taking a test ride through it and showing different parts of it. And there's supposed to be a connector that's supposed to go from the airport to the convention center. And let me tell you something, that's going to piss off every cab company in 100 miles. But what I've seen lately, the last couple of years, the cab companies are losing their power. They're not the, scary, we don't want to touch you because you guys are going to make us wake up with a horse head in our bed kind of thing.
Yeah, it used to be that in Manhattan, a medallion would go for over $1 million.
Oh, yeah, $1 million for a medallion. That's still goes on.
That's because Manhattan and New York City in general has a finite number of medallions they can give out. I mean, most of the municipalities aren't stupid and will actually give out more. So
they also limited the amount of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers that are allowed to operate in New York City. And like, if you were not one of the first ones who tried to do it when they were giving away the passes, you now are not allowed to drive in New York City. Like, you can drop somebody off if you're coming from Long Island going to New York City, but you can't then pick somebody up in New York City and take them somewhere else. It's craziness.
Got to make that Yankee dollar. Yeah.
Next thing, we have another thing from a place far away. New South Wales, right? That's over by England somewhere. I know Doctor Who visits there every now and then. And their driver's license data was leaked online. And it was done through AWS, probably due to a misconfiguration. Regardless of how it happened, the data of a lot of people went to a place where anybody could download it. Some security researcher found it, let them know. They fixed it, but it was available for a very long time for anybody to just go and pull down. So God knows if anybody got it. Five Eyes. If you don't know what Five Eyes is in the intelligence community, those are 5 nations who all agree to cooperate with each other. And they share threat intel and all sorts of fun shit. Chris Krebs over at the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, and Infrastructure Security Agency, or just CISA for short, talked about this advisory as being the first of its kind since their formal establishment in 2018. And this advisory is actually a little technical documentation as to things you can do to uncover and remediate malicious activity on your network. Probably a useful read if you are a network admin and your company doesn't really have a security guy. So you can maybe take up that mantle as well. Or if you're just a security guy and you want to see if there's anything you don't know that could be interesting in there. It's a PDF file. Let's see, how big is it? It's only 14 pages long, so you could read it in a few minutes. I'm not going to read it in a few minutes because I'm lazy, but it's there if you want to read it, and could have some useful info in there for you. Next, who remembers the Alpha Bay? Not the Pirate Bay, but Alpha Bay. So Alpha Bay was on a dark net, and it was one of those places where you go and buy drugs and other shit. Kind of like Nathan's friend,
Silk Road,
of what's his name? I don't remember. Anyway, from the first market that did this, whose name now escapes me.
Red Pirate Roberts was the code name. I'm trying to remember his real name.
Ross Ulbricht of Dread Pirate Roberts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
So
was
like that.
You're,
Now
you're
this guy
thinking
got
of
We
the,
had your mom on the show.
yeah, you're thinking of the Silk Road.
Thank you. That was what I was trying to remember. So yeah, this is like the Silk Road. This guy ran Alphabet, and he got caught, and he's 11 years in jail. That's what he's going to have. Sucks for him. Man, that's...
Speaking of old stuff, I was educating a hipster the other night about EBS versus EAS, and went to an old EBS page, and it had a little stick, those little banners at the bottom of the page from the 90s, and it said "Powered by Hasta La Vista." How old is that? I mean, we're talking, that's some serious ancient right there.
I remember there used to be this site I used to go to download all my cracks. It was called like hastalavista.box.sk.
It was like a hacker's version of a web search system. It predates Google by a couple of years.
I probably installed so much malware on my systems using that site, not knowing before I knew anything.
There was a reasonable amount of legitimate stuff there.
Yeah.
And sometimes you had legitimate stuff with malware attached, and half the fun was digging the malware out of it and then getting the actual tool.
True. Next, we've got some Windows malware called Crypto Cibule, right? It's a triple threat for cryptocurrency users. So this malware, it's aimed at cryptocurrency people, with the malware's main three features being to install a cryptocurrency miner on their system, then to steal any wallet files that are on their system, and then replace those wallet addresses in the operating system's clipboard to hijack cryptocurrency payments. So if you go to copy your wallet address and then go paste it into a place to make a payment, the address you paste is not the address you selected. That's actually pretty wicked. This is by Catalin Simpanu. He writes a lot of really good articles for ZDNet's zero-day column. It goes through the whole thing with this, how it works, how the installer, how you get it. It's usually from malicious torrents because people are stupid. And they download anything because they want free shit, and then they run it, and then they get infected. It's pirated software installers, right? So you get your pirated software just like I got my cracks back in the day, and then you also get some malware, and then that malware installs other shit.
Oh, okay, I have to ask, what fucking year is it right now? Because this doesn't feel like 2020 more. It feels like 2002.
A lot of shit tends to repeat itself in our industry. If it worked back then, people just dig it up and use it again.
It's not repeating. It's still there. It is 2020, and we are still, not patching our boxes, and we're still, buying stuff off the shelf that opens up stuff that goes right through our firewalls. And, it's like people were bagging on me when I bought my Drobo, okay, because I didn't get the Ethernet version with this connector and that connector and this other thing. And I'm like, you're damn right. And let me show you why. And I ran a Google dork, and I started pulling people's, pictures off of their home NAS from Finland. And I'm like, now do you see USB 3 versus this? What would you rather have? Have a nice day. And people go, well, you're not using the latest in technology. And, I'm a barista over at Starbucks, and I know about these things. And I'm just like, good God, people. It's like they just literally don't care. They want the latest, shiniest iPhone 2022, and they don't give a damn if they get reamed in the meantime. And, all their naked cat pictures are being spewed over the internet, and no one cares.
Who the fuck puts clothes on the cat? Or are we talking about those things?
Say again now?
Who the hell puts clothes on a cat? Or are we talking about those things?
Oh, a lot of people put clothes on their cats. Shit, son, people put clothes on monkeys and make $1,000 a month off of YouTube.
That's a weird ass OnlyFans.
You would think there are people in Thailand and in India that are making bank. We're talking in excess of $1,000 to $2,000 a month by getting baby monkeys and dressing them up in clothes and videotape them fucking around in their house. So I mean, there is some spirit of the internet still out there, is what I'm trying to say. But it's like when it comes to security, people just don't. They feel almost like, well, getting hacked is inevitable. So who cares? I'm gonna, plug my hair dryer into IoT, and somebody in Russia can see what the running temperature of my hair dryer is.
Yeah. So moving forward with our articles that we got to cover. Next thing we've got is Ryuk, right? Or Ryuk. I don't know how the hell you say it, but its name comes from anime called Death Note, right? And this piece of software, right? This malware here, it has caused a lot of damage and caused a lot of companies to spend a lot of money to fix and get their shit back. Because when this one first came out, right, it would start where you would get Emotet first as like a Trojan on your box. And if they, after examining your network and looked at a whole bunch of your shit, thought that this could be a valuable resource for them, they would then install Ryuk, which would do the ransomware part of it. So they do some recon first. And I actually had a client who contacted the place where I work, and they wanted us to first they wanted us to decrypt their shit that got encrypted with Ryuk. And we told them we can't do that because encryption hard. But then they wanted to know more about it, how it could have happened. And we put together a little primer for them on like how Emotet works and how they usually send out emails to like everybody in the company, and then somebody clicks on it, they get in, and once they're in, they decide if they want to attack you or not. And if they do, then they push the Ryuk to your shit. So it's an interesting piece of malware. Well, I guess it's several pieces of malware when you kind of put it together. They used to go over after mostly high value targets. Now they're pretty much going after anything they can get. It goes on, talks about combating cashing out on major exchanges here, where essentially they demand a large payment made in cryptocurrency, usually Bitcoin, but sometimes other cryptocurrency. And if they don't get it, then they do bad things. They've already done the bad things, but they don't give you your decryptor. And that's not, now they also share your shit with other people. And it goes on like that. Ryuk, whatever. Phishing scam. All right. Phishing scams are fun. And once they get your users to click on their link, it's pretty much game over, right? One of the more clever ways they're doing this now, right, is to send your user a phishing email with something that looks very innocuous that they can download and know they probably won't get a virus from, maybe a docx file, right? But they don't actually attach a docx file to the document. They put a link to the docx file that is hosted on what looks like a SharePoint site that they control. And when they click the link, they get prompted to enter their user credentials to log into SharePoint. So the user will, of course, put their username and password in, at which point the user, the bad guy now has the credentials for that user. It looks pretty passable, I guess you would say, as far as like emails go. Because they even put this little image here that you would normally get in Outlook. That means like you have an attachment, right? But that actually just leads to a link, right? So they use SharePoint. They use OneNote sometimes. They make fake stuff. They're really getting innovative, trying to get your users to give away their credentials. They got fake login pages up the wazoo. Sometimes they don't even host it on their own infrastructure. They will hack like a WordPress site and then they will upload their own shit that looks like fake Office 365 stuff. And then your users will be directed to somebody else's WordPress site, and then they will put in their Office credentials, and the attacker will get them. And the person who's hosting the site has no idea any of this is even going on. So, yeah, don't click login links from emails. Keep your eyes open for obvious giveaways. If you think you put a password where you shouldn't, change it. Use two-factor wherever you can, and consider phishing simulators like the Sophos Fish Threat. And the reason they mention that is because this is the Sophos blog, so you have to have a little bit of product endorsement for your own stuff there in the article.
Yeah.
Just don't use fish meat because that thing is such fucking garbage.
Is it now? I was actually thinking about using it for
That's
some
the
projects.
Sophos one, right?
No, I don't know who makes fish meat anymore, but the campaigns I see it run are just you're really scraping bottom of the barrel for these. They're so obviously fake. It's like not even questionable in terms of.
What about like Nobi4 stuff? I heard the Mitnick gives them some good material to use.
I've never used that, so I don't know.
You know, I've had some fun with simulated phishing stuff where people go absolutely ape nuts when they get busted. And they're like, no, it was legitimate, and they actually argue the point with you. It's like, dude, I'm running the phishing simulator. I can see what happened. And, you know, with one company I worked with, whose name will remain what it is, we actually had a huge dust-up around the holiday time because they actually did send out a click-to-read-it holiday card. And when we actually used a click-to-read-it holiday card phishing simulation. So people were like refusing to respond to the legitimate one, thinking it was phishing. And boy, there was some howdy-do about that from the C-level.
At a company I used to work for, we used to have great success with phishing campaigns, and people would click on shit that I would not have thought they would have. And we always had really good luck with like a HIPAA campaign that said to keep your services up to date, you must go in and fill out this form or whatever, and a lot of people click it and run shit, and unfortunately the Java attack we used became less and less effective over time because Java became harder and harder to run in the browser.
Yeah, Java's a real bitch to get working properly.
I mean, even if you want it was something legitimate, sometimes it was getting hard to get Java to function at that point.
It's because they started adding functions that only worked in certain versions of the JRE. And then developers would use those functions, and then they'd come out with a new version that didn't support those functions. And now you have apps that will run on like version 6 of the JRE, but won't work on version 7, so you can't update them. And then you have companies installing the old version of the JRE on all their computers because the application they use only works with that version of the JRE. And that version also happens to have a whole bunch of vulnerabilities. So it's a shit show.
There are definitely times where I'm glad I'm no longer a pen tester day to day. Do some from time to time, but not from day to day.
I've got some pencils you could test if you want.
I'll pass. Thank you very much.
Testing pens can be difficult. They run out of ink and shit. So,
sensors detect dad joke.
I am king of the dad jokes, actually. So next we're going to be talking about a leak that was caused by a third party that a company relied on to host and manage their database and records. The company that got pwned is called Blackbaud, right? And Blackbaud, they maintain online records for more than 25,000 nonprofits, from hospitals to schools to churches to arts and cultural groups and foundations. Somehow hackers managed to get a hold of the backup file for the database that hosted the records for a hospital's donor database, and they don't know how it happened. They paid the hacker a ransom in exchange for the destruction of his copy of the backup file. And they claimed the cybercriminal did not access credit card, bank information, or social security numbers, although that information was definitely in the backup file. So they paid him, so of course he wouldn't then go and use those credit cards. Hackers have a moral and ethical code not to do shit like that.
What?
I'm being sarcastic.
I've heard of this code. I mean, when you go to hacker school, they make you put your hand on a copy of the Cuckoo's Egg and swear that you won't do things.
Exactly. A hacker's got a database, steal his credit card, right? But you gave him some money, so he's not going to use it.
Oh, we'll destroy your data. Yes, we will.
Of course, we won't just keep a copy of it. So they've confirmed there were no social security numbers in this, which is good. One more piece of data that the bad guy shouldn't have access to.
One more piece of data we shouldn't be using for everything from cell phones to pornography. But we still do, even though there's a law against it.
Once I had to do a background check for a job, and my dad has the same name as I do, and I don't have anything that was bad in my background, so I just used this, and they didn't even notice. Like, he's much older than me. You'd think they would have noticed, but they did not. Didn't even raise an alarm bell. So
I'm wondering how who's paying who off monthly to get away with this. Because the law in the book says the SSN is not to be used for anything other than Social Security, and you got to give that thing up to do anything.
The problem is a lot of people build databases and they need a unique identifier, and they don't want to use auto number. So rather than use auto number, they'll Social Security number. That's going to be different for everybody.
And somebody else has to maintain it and do all the work to keep it going, and so on and so on. Yeah, it's a payday for a lot of people, but it's also illegal as hell.
I can tell you actually that AP, the answer is they don't require you to give it, but they will strong arm you into giving it. You can always say no, I will not give it, and technically there's nothing they can do. They should proceed as normal.
I did not sign up for FiOS until I gave them my social.
Yeah, they can refuse to give you whatever it is you're trying to buy.
Yeah.
Try getting a cell phone without giving up a social. Well, from a legitimate carrier.
Yeah.
You go down to, ABC cell phones in Chinatown, you can get whatever you want. But you go to like T-Mobile or Verizon and you say, sorry, no social security number. And they'll say, okay, sorry, no service.
Yep.
Try to rent an apartment, open a bank account. You name it. You got to give up that social. And yet nobody does a thing about this.
Yeah. So this next article that we're looking at is about how small businesses can prioritize network security in the remote work era. And the first thing they go into, which I think is kind of stupid, is how an attack can cost the company up to $1.2 million. That's kind of conservative. I think it costs a lot more than that, depending on the size of the organization to fix shit. Not to mention not just the cost of recovery, but the cost of your reputation with your clients. It talks about how 80% of employees are accessing company emails from their mobile devices now, and how that's got a lot of security risks, and people are more likely to click a fish on a mobile device. And it goes on, talks about people downloading malicious apps.
Have you seen the new alphabet soup they've made around that?
No, enlighten me.
BYOD, BYOC, CYOA, CYOD, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with those acronyms.
Those are the new buzzwords for this, and it's really blowing some people's minds because they don't really understand what it means. And it's as simple as don't use your own shit,
Well, some companies, they do BYOD because they don't have to spend money on a whole bunch of laptops for everybody or phones for everybody.
Yeah, but
what's the companies do that? But you shouldn't let your companies on their home machines that they use to browse porn also go on your corporate network to VPN in and have access to everything.
And not only that, but you say you don't want to buy a bunch of laptops, but then you have to buy a bunch of software anyway. Because you're going to want your remote wipe, you're going to want your FDE, you're going to want all the other happiness. So you end up spending the money either way. You might as well spend the money on something you have absolute control over.
When it comes to remote wipe, you can do that with cell phones, but doing that with Outlook can be a pain. I mean, you can remote wipe a system itself and just like set the shit to factory, but that's a pain in the ass to get working right. And
It depends on who's you're using. Like some people, ever since Kingston bought out Irongeek, all their remote wipe, remote self-destruct stuff has been top notch. And Irongeek was one of the first companies to do, on a consumer level, to do physical self-destruct. I used to work with things that on the commercial level, like on trading floors. They would have these these network cards for trading systems that were hermetically sealed, and if you popped the seal, the card would physically self-destruct.
wow,
Before you could tamper with it, and then nothing explosive, no James Bond shit. Just the chip would fry, and 5 volts in the wrong place, and you've got a piece of plastic.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen that, but the Irongeek was one of the first consumer level toys where if you rip it open and try and break it apart, it goes pop. I'm dead. Yeah, and the thing is, you're going to pay for that. And then either way, and with a laptop, you can do all kinds of magic with Citrix and everything else, and you'll never see anything on it other than your work stuff. Versus, like you said, the guy who goes home, drinks a 6-pack, and goes to porn.uk. And it's got your company secrets on the machine. You're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's something to be said for remote desktop. What do they call that? The whole thing where everybody's got their own remote desktop. Fuck, I'm forgetting my acronym. Anyway, there's something to be said for doing that kind of setup, but it can be difficult to implement if.
It's even harder to get people to use it.
EDI is the word.
It's too hard. I don't want to do it. When my potty hurts. And
right, getting your users to even use 2-factor can be a pain in the ass.
Why is that? 2-factor is the easiest thing in the world since jerking off. And I mean, why is so many people have a hard time with it?
What program you use? Like if you're using Google Authenticator because you don't want to spend money for anything, and they have to manually type in like 6 digits or whatever. Some users will bitch about that. Like the code changed before I could type it in, and it's like, fuck off. But
I had a deal once in one of my physical security jobs where the CEO wanted card plus 4-digit PIN to get in the front door, and I watched a user literally put his finger over the keypad and pretend, but not actually push the buttons, and then said, "There, it doesn't work." So yeah, I've seen that kind of idiocy, and it's like those are the people that get you pwned. Those are the users that get you boned, and every time, without exception.
Yeah. There are ways to be secure. Like you can use a YubiKey for your users, and all I have to do is remember to plug the shit in their USB port, and then they can log into their stuff.
Have you ever seen someone put a YubiKey into a USB port?
What?
I have watched people screw that up.
That does not surprise me, but it's more likely that they will be able to figure that out than to do 2-factor properly.
Insert tab A in slot B.
Try and plug it into the freaking HDMI port.
Don't stranger things have happened.
I actually had a friend tell me, "Hey, I know you're really good with computers. Can you help my friend out? She's lives in another state, and she bought a printer, and she can't figure out why it won't work, rather." So I go on the computer, I remote over to it, and I take a look, and like everything seems set up right. Like there's a device named the printer, but it shows that it's offline. I ask her, "Is it plugged in?" And she confirms that it's plugged in. And I'm looking, and I'm like trying to figure this shit out. Eventually, I figure out that she has plugged the USB device for the printer into the secondary Ethernet jack that's on the box. Somehow, she fit that in there.
Wow!
Like, she took a picture and sent it to me, and I was like, "How does that even happen? How does that fit in there?" One of all, because they're like, it's the wrong size; it shouldn't fit. But she got it in there.
Well, there's that old saying, everything's a dildo if you're brave enough. So anything will fit into a port.
Yeah.
I'll give you one. I got a call once when I was working at a non-disclosed location, and they had this one division that was set up just for training people. Like your first 2 weeks on the job of being trained on from things from A to Z. Like this is how you pick your nose. This is, what this. If you hear this siren go off, put your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye. And this is where all the people went to retire. So, like the last 6 months to a year before your retirement, you got sent to the training division, and you worked there because it was a laid back, easy job. And there was this woman working there who called in and said that her mouse had stopped working, wasn't working right. And so, having grabbed the short straw, I grab a replacement mouse and I get out there, and there's this wonderful, absolutely would never feed you an oatmeal cookie grandmother, like working in this thing, right? And I couldn't find her mouse. And I'm looking all over the place, and she's like, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "Well, you said your mouse wasn't working." And she said, "I know, it's the weirdest thing, but look." And I looked under her desk, and she had the mouse on the floor, and she was working it with her foot.
What?
The way you would work a foot pedal on a sewing machine.
Oh my God. I have a similar story.
And I was just like, ah. So
I was working with somebody trying to troubleshoot them doing some remote shit, and I told them she was older also, and really never used a computer before. And I told her, just take the mouse and double click on the icon on the screen. And eventually I figured out she was actually physically picking up the mouse and putting it on the screen and clicking like this.
Well, there was a day when you had to do that on the old IBM terminals, where you had this thing called a light pen, and you would click on things on the screen with the light pen.
Oh boy!
Do you remember the old optical mice where you had to have a special mouse pad or else they didn't work?
Yeah, those were a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
I remember cleaning mouse balls. That sucked.
Yes.
Again, it gave me a job over December.
There were so many jokes about my mouse balls, though. One of the rookie jokes we used to pull on people was, mice have two balls. And, we had this one guy who tore down a mouse and he couldn't find the other ball. And he was looking all over for the second ball. And it's like, one is for X and one is for Y. And it's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, mice have two balls. Did you ever go to biology class?
Very good.
Okay.
It was kind of like the equivalent of being an auto mechanic and having someone send you out for headlight fluid.
Yeah, I would think once they disassemble it and see that there's one ball and two rollers back in the day.
Yep.
So, you know what the biggest and most important invention, I think, the last, it's now been close to 30 years instead of 20 years, that has improved computing is LCD monitors and optical mice.
Yeah, monitors don't weigh 300 pounds anymore, and I'm so happy for that. Because I'm a multi-monitor person, and I used to have to lug those freaking CRT monitors. The other day, I replaced a couple of monitors and got some extra ones at Fry's. And I'm like, I can lift this whole monitor with one hand and not even think about it. And I'm like, wow, where was this back in, 1999? Oh, you want to talk about cruel jokes? You ever work on Sun equipment? Sun hardware?
No.
When you put a CPU into a Sun machine, they give you a special tension wrench, so you don't overdo it when you're ratcheting it in there. And I gave it.
I remember having to do that on the Spark stations.
Yeah, I gave one of those to a scrub who was coming up in the knock, and I told him it was a bandwidth adjuster, and that you had to go around to every single box in the knock and adjust how much bandwidth it got. You plugged it in, you stick it into the network card, and you turn it, and that controlled how much bandwidth came through.
Dude, you are an asshole.
You invented QoS.
You are an asshole.
And the thing is, the kid got all choked up, and he was like, "This is the first real tool, that I've ever gotten in computers." And really, thank you, man. You're awesome. And you're right. I for about 10 minutes, I felt like the world's biggest asshole after I did that. But then I watched him running around the knock trying to find a computer to test it out on, and I felt better.
But I remember back when I was in the Boy Scouts, they we went to a place where a whole bunch of different troops were camping, and my scoutmaster told me as we were setting up the campfire, you need to go and find us a left-handed smoke shifter. Go to we forgot ours. And I went to every single one of these Boy Scout troops, and I was asking their camp leader if they had a left-handed smoke shifter. And he would tell me, yep, we have one, but we can't lend it out to you, or all sorts of shit from different ones. They all seemed in on it, and I felt so stupid when I figured out that wasn't.
Yeah. That's the old left-handed screwdriver joke.
I thought you were going to go with the snipe hunt there, because that's kind of an iconic one, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They got me with the snipe hunt my first time I went out. It was actually kind of fun just walking through the forest in the middle of the night, and they'd throw like rocks and make like, there's one. It was fun.
Oh, the cruel things we do to each other.
Yes.
And these days they call that gatekeeping and throw us out of DEF CON.
It's okay. We'll start our own con with hookers and
Blackjack.
Blackjack. Dude, starting a new con. Never mind, I have thoughts for after the show to talk about that shit.
Next, we've got a privilege escalation bug in FreeBSD. Too bad Charles is not here. I tweeted this out to him earlier today, and he gave me a thumbs up. But regardless, this is here's how it works. It's 40 seconds. You can watch it.
Welcome to a ZDI exploit demonstration overview. This video covers a local privilege escalation bug in the FreeBSD operating system. From a console window, we confirm the OS version. We then compile and execute our code to go from an unprivileged user to root.
Yep. And the code is not really all that long either. It's about 60 lines. So cool. I don't know how it works because I'm not the greatest coder in the world, but it looks interesting. And I always love privilege escalation bugs because doing the Kali labs, I would often get myself on a box, and then I could not, for the life of me, figure out how to escalate privileges after running like the Linux privest check script and nothing working from there. And then scratching my head, I'm like, I guess I'm stuck as user. But yeah, I always love good privilege escalation bugs and techniques. Those are fun. Next thing we've got, so a lot of bad guys have been using Monero for a long time because it's hard to track. And now the U.S. Homeland Security can track Monero, so it's not as private anymore, and therefore it's probably not going to be worth as much. A lot of bad guys will also compromise a box and install XMR rig on there, and then they'll do it mostly with like Docker containers, and then they just run mining software 24/7 trying to generate some Monero monies. So Cipher Tree claims to have built a Monero tracking tool set. They were created for the Department of Homeland Security, and they paint it as a positive for XMR, adding legitimacy to the privacy coin. In my opinion, that's not going to be the way it's going to go. I think it's going to go down in value since it can be tracked, because the whole reason that bad guys want to use it is because it can't be tracked. So, my opinion. Could be wrong. I'm often wrong.
Do they say anything about how they're tracking it?
Yes. They built a Monero tracking toolset.
Well, shit. Slap me with the trout.
So they built it for the Department of Homeland Security. It's not like an open source thing anybody can go and grab. So I don't think they're going to talk too much about how it really works.
Yeah, but you would think the people who created it might want to say something about it.
Well, let's hit their site and see what the hell they have to say. Nothing. Tools to explore Monero transactions in investigations. including search, exploration, and visualization tools, yada, yada, yada. Nothing useful. Some bullshit statistics. Some quotes about why Monero is a good cryptocurrency. Nope, nothing technical about how the fuck it works. Maybe we should request a demo.
Maybe somebody might want some proof of concept or, something.
First name, Adrian Crenshaw. Work email, Adrian at Irongeek.com. There we go.
Did we lose Adrian?
I'm still here.
Oh.
Yeah, let's do that. Sign them up for a demo. Yeah, so they don't really talk about how it works, but the fact that you can track Monero, or anybody can do that, it's not good. Well, not good for the bad guys. It's good for the good guys. Next, we got Team TNT, the first crypto mining worm to steal AWS credentials. Is it really, though? Is it? So, over the weekend, we've seen a crypto mining worm spread that steals AWS credentials. It contains AWS specific functionality. It'll steal local login creds and then will scan for misconfigured Docker platforms. It will compromise Docker and Kubernetes systems. The attacks are indicative of a wider trend. Organizations migrate their computing resources to the cloud and container environments, and then we see attackers following them there. It will steal creds from this folder and this folder, which they often happen to be unencrypted in, and then it will use those creds to do things like spin up more AWS instances, and you will get charged for their crypto mining. Yeah. That'd be dick, right? Imagine you get like a fucking $1 million bill for crypto mining in your AWS shit. It's like, I can do this. Yeah. So, to mitigate this, if you've got a system that is storing AWS creds in clear text, like in a text file in one of those two folders, figure out a way that you can do the things you want to do, maybe using an API rather than using hard-coded credentials. Yep. And limit access to Docker APIs in your firewall. Like, don't let people use your Docker APIs if they're not in your network. Review network traffic for any connections from mining pools. It's usually a way you tend to find this shit is you go through your IDS logs and you see a whole bunch of connections to some crypto miner pool, like the mining pool. And of course, don't send AWS creds over HTTP unless you are a super dumbass. All valid points. Last but not least, in the regular part of the show notes, the feds want to snoop on your encrypted data because it's for the good of the children.
You gotta love it when they drag that old chestnut out.
Yeah, that's for anything national security. Think of the children. Ban guns, think of the children. Ban encryption, think of the children.
Well, it's the children that are using the encryption to keep their parents from finding out that they're looking at Brazilian cake fart porn.
Wait, cake fart porn? What?
You've never heard of this?
I don't want to know about
He's
this.
brought it up before in the cast. This is
Come on, you should remember that.
Kick fart. Okay, I have to look that shit up.
Yep, it's funny as hell to watch. I actually used that against the DMV a couple of days ago.
Right. So one of the bills that's stealing our encryption rights, the Lawful Access to Encrypted Data Act, right? This is an anti-encryption bill that makes all encryption without a government backdoor illegal. That'll stop ransomware. Other similar bills exist. To follow such an order would spell the death of encryption, right?
Okay. I'm asexual now.
You know what's funny is, do you really think it'll kill encryption? People will just make encryption that has no back door, and what are you going to do? Come kick my door in and shoot my dog for having encryption?
Right. So the thing is, the companies that make the software products that we use that have encryption would be mandated by the government to put a backdoor in their shit.
So fuck them. Don't use them. How long will it take for the open source community to make a crypto that has no backdoor in it?
Like you could just use AES 256. That's strong enough. But I'm saying, like, the government would mandate anybody who uses that, they have to have their own key in it now. Like, they'd have to make some kind of...
And how are they going to enforce that?
Look, they make bills without any idea how to enforce them.
I know. But I'm just saying, it's unrealistic. It's a waste of time and paper.
Like right now in my state, we have a law on the books that says you cannot go to a store and that store cannot have plastic bags anymore, right? You can't have them, right? And like half the places I go shopping still have them. Why?
There's a law in Vermont that says you can't whistle underwater. Okay, I mean, I know. But I mean, we got to look at this shit realistically. How many generations away are we before we have lawmakers that are tech savvy?
It's going to be a while, man. Like,
it's like
the thing is, they will make these bills that they have no way of enforcing, and then they will use it to put innocent people in jail who they can't get on other shit.
Yeah.
They'll be like, well, we don't know these criminals. They laundered billions of dollars, but we can't get them on it. But you know what? They were using Signal to communicate with one another, and that's now against the law, so we'll throw them in jail for that.
It's just the insanity of it all.
And it goes on to quote Snowden, how the NSA has built an infrastructure that allows it to intercept almost everything. With this capability, the vast majority of human communications automatically get ingested without targeting. If I were to see your emails or your wife's phones, all I have to do is use intercepts. I can get your emails, passwords, phone records, credit cards. I don't want to live in a society that does these sorts of things. I do not want to live in a world where everything I do and say is recorded. That is not something I'm willing to support or live under. So I'm going to go live in Russia because they're much more free.
Yeah, well, let's also consider Snowden's probably not the most credible source of anything.
Look, we would know a lot of the shit we know if he didn't leak it. Like,
I agree, but when he starts saying generic shit like that, one of two things is happening. Either he's showboating his own dick, and it's not real or it's semi-real, or the NSA is going to put something in his tea, and that'll be the end of it. And that's probably why he wants to do the runaway to Russia thing. But I mean, the thing is, he's in a unique spot where his credibility can't be questioned. Because if you question his credibility, well, he used to work for them, so he must know. And if you don't question his credibility, well, why haven't they shut him up? Why don't they throw him in jail? Why don't they, put something in his tea? And so he could say anything, and there would be hearty debate about it. He could say that the NSA has proof that the Easter Bunny exists and has the Tooth Fairy as a side woman. Okay, and you'd have to believe it because he knows. I mean, here's a guy living in Hawaii, dating a stripper, working for the NSA as a sysadmin, and he throws it all away for the greater good of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, he was in charge of some projects that were tying different government systems together. So he had a lot of access to different kinds of data that normally your typical sysadmin would not have access to.
So why aren't they shutting him up?
Maybe he's got shit he hasn't released, and if they shut him up, it goes public.
It's a good theory, but does he seem like the kind of person? I mean, we've got people, McAfee does that. How about, the McAfee, literally has like a number station that, if he disappears, stage 1 code goes out and stage 2 code goes out, and nobody gives a damn.
I don't know.
It's just sometimes you got to step back and question some of this stuff. Of course, we all have our paranoid side. We all have the hairs in the back of our necks. Everyone says, well, the feds own 3/4 of the Tor exit nodes. But, where's the beef?
Yeah, and did you see that a couple of weeks ago we covered a story where now about 1 in every 3, but previously about 2 in every 3 Tor exit nodes, where they had this crypto jacking shit running on them that would actually, if you went to go to like a coin tumbler and you put in a wallet address, it would intercept that and then steal your coins.
I mean, Tor is beautiful for that. It's the greatest way to exploit other people's data. They give it to you voluntarily. They don't want anybody to know that you have it, and you've got it. Have a nice day.
And you're just sitting there thinking the tumbler stole your coins. All right. Next, we have other shit. And the first 3 stories in other shit are not technical, and then the rest of them are somewhat technical. So the payroll deferral tax.
Hey, soon see more cash.
Shush. It starts Tuesday, which is yesterday. If you make less than $4,000 bi-weekly, you have this thing going on where you now don't have a payroll tax being taken out until August. No, not until August. Until when? I don't know yet because I haven't gotten there.
This is funny, actually, because how long this lasts is in direct conflict with the election. I don't know if you saw that part.
I did not see that.
The announcement was that the deferment may or may not be forgiven, and the word was we will know after the election. The decision as to whether or not to make it the deferment permanent or it has to be repaid waits until after the election. What more brilliant way to buy votes?
That's pretty clever, actually. So yeah, it usually comes out to about 6.2% of your gross pay. So if you make 30 grand, that's about $71 a paycheck. So a total of maybe $650. Double or triple those numbers if you make 60 grand or 90 grand. So it's not huge amounts of money, but it adds up. And yeah, if you're a contractor like me, they already don't take anything out of your check. So yeah.
Well, it depends on what kind of contractor you are. I assume you're 1099 or
Yep.
corp to corp. Yeah, then that's that. Yeah, then they don't.
Yeah, I have to pay my own taxes on a estimated tax thing, and I usually do it 3 times a year, but I've really not done it at all this year because money's been tight.
Yeah.
I'm dropping the quote in the chat area.
I have too many windows open. Okay, I see it.
Oh wait, I can put it in.
This payroll tax holiday is only a deferral. Although the president has promised to do away with the tax if reelected, it would require an act of Congress to wipe out the liability altogether. The big issue, surprise, is that employers are going to be completely responsible for all the repayments, so they get all the responsibility for retaining their deferrals. Interesting.
And that's going to ADP.
Yeah,
Which is a pretty reliable source.
So once I had a job that used ADP and they didn't have the traditional timesheets, every time you came into work, despite just being like a tech job, you had to click login manually. Like you had to log into their site and then you had to go to this portal and click that you were at work. And this pissed me off because I would come in and then people would flag me down before I could get to my computer. And these were like the big people in the company. And if I didn't go and take care of their shit, I would be in trouble. And then I'd go to get to log in, and I would have lost like 45 minutes. So I went and I learned how to use what the fuck technology was it back then? Chrome driver and Selenium, I think it was. And I put together a thing that would just launch Chrome, log into the site, click the required button, and then I scripted it to run every day at the time I was supposed to come into work and when I was supposed to go home. It was great. ADP.
I've worked at places that have you do a time card. It's so stupid.
I do a time card now once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I do too. And all mine tracks is like, oh, you were off. Okay, so they they don't care about their in and out time because I'm salary.
Right. So next we
yeah, you have the time card because you're hourly. So.
Yep. So corn moon, right? So what the hell is a corn moon? Well, it's happening tonight, or did it already happen? It happened yesterday, and you missed it. Yep, it happens once every 3 years, and it happened last night, and you missed it because you were on your computer doing stupid shit, and you should have been looking at the moon.
Is corn anything like cornhole? Just asking.
So it's a corn moon.
I wouldn't have seen it here anyways because we've been having really bad storms here the past couple of days. So I mean, it was raining like the last 12 hours. So yeah.
We got a flood warning here in southern Indiana, so I'm assuming the hurricanes and so forth have caused some effects even up this far.
Well, there were some big storms coming up from Mexico that ran through us, so you're probably getting them now too.
So next we've got Linwood, who is the attorney for Kyle Rittenhouse, says he was locked out of his Twitter account because he was trying to fundraise for Kyle Rittenhouse is defense. So you obviously all probably know who this dude is already. Shot 3 people. Regardless of how you feel about what happened, everybody is entitled to legal representation. But
yeah, I have some friends who still think he's completely a murderer and in the wrong, and I'm a little bit more mixed on it. The thing I don't understand, I understand the least about the situation is the first shots that were fired. That part I haven't seen really clear in video.
I have some information. I don't know if you want to talk about it now or wait till after cast, but that's up to you.
Up to you because it's your ass if someone gets pissed off, but I don't care.
I don't give a fuck. So from everything I've seen, when he was there, so Kyle Rittenhouse was actually there working as a lifeguard. So he actually did not just travel in. He was actually there during the day working as a lifeguard. And a friend of his called to ask him to help out to provide medical aid because, again, being a lifeguard, I don't think he's an EMT, but he's definitely got medical training. So he was there to provide medical aid, and a buddy of his loaned him a rifle. And during that time, he was helping to remove some graffiti and all that jazz. During that night, when the event happened, there were some Antifa dudes who were lighting a dumpster on fire with the intent of, they were trying to push into a police station or something like that. And he was fired.
I think it was a gas station they were trying to push it into.
It's something, but they're trying to light some shit on fire. And he put out the fire extinguisher, and someone took umbrage at that because how dare you ruin our massively crafted plan, and confronted him, and the dude started chasing him, threatening him, and threw something at him. I've heard he threw something at him. Supposedly there were some gunshots before that as well, but the dude was basically chasing after him. This dude who's bigger, stronger. This was actually the dude who's a pedophile. So yeah, a pedophile chasing after a minor.
I've heard multiple things from the pedophile thing too. Like the pedo thing may be from like 20 years ago when the guy was 18 and she was maybe 16 or 15. Which I'm not defending that. I'm just saying I don't know. I've heard so much shit, and social media it's such a shit show for finding information.
But anyways, that's when he actually used deadly force there, was to stop the dude from attacking him because he was actually being attacked. And then other people saw that, said, hey, get that guy, and they chased after him. He tripped, and then that's when the second 2 shootings happened.
And then the other guy, one dude hit him with a skateboard, and the other dude had a gun aimed at him.
Yep. So those 2, were absolutely 100% justified. The first one is where it gets a little tricky, but from everything that we've seen, all the video we've seen, it sounds justified as well. And honestly, can you say it was even murder? He killed 3 fucking commies.
I wasn't supposed to laugh at that, was I?
No, that's why they're going after you, Adrian.
Oh shit! Yeah. Oh hell, dude.
So. Anyway, this dude's attorney is on Twitter trying to raise money, right? And they banned his account. They said he was promoting hate.
Yeah, I don't know if he needs to raise money though, because he's got a lawyer that's already doing it pro bono for him.
This is the lawyer, the pro bono lawyer who's doing it out of the goodness of his heart, wants money from the public, right?
Raising
money for his legal defense.
Yeah.
Same
And
guy who helped
shut
Salmon.
his account down.
Right? Same lawyer that helped Salmon out, if I recall correctly. The guy,
He
the
was
Catholic
glorifying
kid.
violence. So now he's going after Jack Dorsey, the guy who owns Twitter.
Oh, what's the
Saying
interview
that,
with Rogan with Jack
his freedom
Dorsey,
of speech.
Pool, and whoever Jack Dorsey's advisor was? I can't remember her name. Yeah, they covered Jack Dorsey and the lady from Twitter was covering ass so much.
But yeah, that's kind of a good thing because like there are some people who try to do crowdfunding on like GoFundMe, and those were all shut down. But the ones for the quote victims are still up. And actually, I saw a article from Ian Chong that said, oh, apparently like one of the people who was actually raising funds for the guy who I think survived, or no, the second guy, the one with the hit with the skateboard, they'd all been dating for like a month. So she was like conning people out of like $115,000.
I
she was not
question
actually
a lot of
family.
charities.
Yeah.
Like I have some friends who are looking into a 501c. Wait, is that the right term? 501c?
C3.
Okay, that hasn't reported its finances apparently into the IRS yet.
Yeah, that's very illegal and thought patrol, motherfucker.
Next, whoa, what did I do there? I'm going to skip down a little bit, and I'm going to talk about how Warren Buffett is taking all of his shit out of the U.S. dollar. So Warren Buffett, he has invested about $6 billion in Japan's 5 biggest trading houses. The company's taken a 5% stake in Itochu Corp, Marubeni Corp, and Mitsubishi Corp, and Mitsui and Co. Limited, and some other ones that I'm not going to say the names of. His choice in Japan surprised market players, as traditional houses have been long far from investor favorites. Most of his operating businesses are American, and the company owns more than 90 businesses outright and invests in dozens of companies such as American Express, Bank of America, Coca-Cola. He has roughly a $125 billion stake in Apple, accounting for about 43% of its total portfolio.
What the holy shit?
He also invested in a surprise move about 2 weeks ago when it invested in Barrick Gold, a crypto exchange. Gemini founder Cameron something tweeted on Sunday, when Buffett buys a stake in gold mining company, he knows something's up. Inflation is coming. He'll find Bitcoin in a decade. It took him till 2016 to find APPL, but now it's his biggest investment ever. Many people joined the discussion, pointing out that Buffett is already 90, so it would be difficult for him to find Bitcoin during his lifetime. Overall, the opinions are split, with some believing that Berkshire CEO will eventually buy Bitcoin, while others say he will never do it in his lifetime. Perhaps his younger deputies might be Berkshire Hathaway is a public company, so it's difficult for them to take many non-equity outlier positions. He was gifted a Bitcoin in February by Tron founder Justin Sung during a dinner with which Sun won for $4.57 million at a charity auction. However, Buffett later said that all cryptocurrencies gifted him were immediately regifted to his charity. So he does not want cryptocurrency in his portfolio, even if it's given to him. Who gives somebody a $5 million gift?
If you're as rich as Warren Buffett, you can do that shit.
But he got a $5 million gift from somebody named Justin Sun, who founded Tron. What is Tron? I thought that was a movie. What the hell? Anyway, Some people believe he's going to panic buy at 50K, just like the gold bug.
I've heard that from some people. I vaguely follow various investment people that the American dollar is overvalued, but the reason it's still a standard currency is because our government, as bad as it might be, is less corrupt than other governments. I don't.
Right. So, like China, they intentionally devalue their currency, so it's worth less than it should be worth because they want to be able to trade with places like America. That's how we're able to get so much shit manufactured in China for so little money. Because they're
Those trade deals and
their
it was TVs and so forth. I'm fine with that. But why the fuck do we have so much apparently medicine manufactured in China? That sounds like a very bad idea.
Because it's cheaper to do it there. Like
I
said,
but oh shit, stability. That seems like a.
If I can spend $100 in the U.S. and get one product, and spend the same $100 in China and get 5 products, I'm gonna probably go to China.
I would agree, and at face value, yes, but there's some products that you really want to reliably be able to get, and different medications are definitely one of those.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the whole Buffett thing that we were talking about there. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about Bitcoin. Right.
What the hell was that picture taken?
It's a nice picture.
I know up in in northern Indiana, there's a bunch of wind farms. That's one of the reasons I'm asking.
All right. So this article originally comes from Bloomberg, and it says, on a sweltering summer afternoon in West Texas, a cryptocurrency miner backed by billionaire Peter Thiel powered down its data processing centers for about 30 minutes. During that short window, the company made money not from Bitcoin, but from selling electricity. On hot days without wind, the company, Layer 1, can sell its contracted power supplies back to the grid for a profit. Recently, when the prices of power in Texas topped 200 a megawatt hour, Layer 1 reaped the returns of more than 700%, according to its founder and chief executive officer, Alexander Legal. At night, the power prices drop to zero or lower due to oversupply of wind energy, but it can throttle up its operations as much as the circuit boards can handle. When that happens, we're getting paid to produce Bitcoins. The strategy is part of a trend that's revolutionizing how big energy users interact with the grid. Instead of passively consuming, tech companies and others are adjusting their operations hours to access the cheapest, cleanest power. This move isn't just profitable, it's using key renewable energy resources. Currently, grids rely on natural gas and other fossil fuels to ramp up when demand peaks. When big users adjust consumption, wind and solar can handle more of a load. Flexible loads and devices are the key to getting beyond 50% renewables, yada, yada, yada. Article goes on a lot more there, but that's pretty much the important part that we care about. Also, that Google buys its power directly from wind and solar farms near its operation, which is kind of interesting. And Bitcoin mining isn't naturally a green endeavor. It takes a lot of energy. It's usually made with fossil fuels. But if you can generate Bitcoin and do it with windmills, why the hell not, right? More capacity, the bigger the size, the more money. Money. They can make 27 Bitcoin a day. That is 310 grand. Damn. Wish I thought of that. Yeah. And speaking of Bitcoin, Empire Market, right? We talked about one of the other markets earlier. Well, I think it was the same one, actually. Yeah, Empire Market went dark about a month ago. Icarus Market will scam native darknet users rushing into a new unproven sites. Right. Over the weekend, Dark.fail, a Twitter account that claims to be an anonymous journalist researching Tor, highlighted several remaining marketplaces that could see growth in the light of Empire's absence. It's worth noting, however, that Bitcoin transactions are still made up of 1% of all total Bitcoin transactions. What? It's worth noting, however, that Bitcoin transactions still make up just 1% of Bitcoin transactions. That sentence does not make sense. Somebody help me with that sentence. That does not make sense. I lost the article. Screw it. I don't care. Close everything. Close it all.
It all must die. Wait.
Yeah. Anyway, next thing we've got NVIDIA's new RTX 3090 is a $1,499 monster GPU designed for 8K gaming.
But what? Okay, what by what resolution is 8K?
A lot.
And there's a certain point which I don't think my eye can perceive it. So
yeah, I can't see anything greater than 1080p. Really, like anything that's higher resolution than that, I really don't notice.
I remember I started watching movies in 1080p, and some things like I'm an aficionado of like old 80s horror films. I'm used to watching them on shitty VHS tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I start seeing the newer, revised,
upscaled,
yeah, I see Bruce Campbell's pimples or something. It's weird.
This is why HD almost killed porn.
Oh
yeah. You can see everyone's butt acne at that point.
Exactly, or worse, herpes scars.
Oh
no. Yeah. The next we have the RTX 3090. Right, this is the top of the line, the best video card you can buy. It is got a massive specs. It's got 24 gigs of DDR6 memory. It's clocked at 1.7 gigahertz, and it's got 10,496 CUDA cores. Badass. I wonder how much Bitcoin that could mine.
But I got a weird side question. Should I even update my Pixel? I got a Pixel 3 XL. I just got a replacement in because the old one's battery was expanding because of a design flaw, I think. I'm halfway thinking about keeping it for 3 total years because the new Pixel 5 doesn't look like it's going to be.
Finish your sentence. Use words. Adrian. Where'd you go, Adrian?
That sounds like his internet cut or something. Or
Adrian! Well, anyway, when Adrian hears me, keep your phone. All right, next. The RTX 3090 is a badass video card. The 3080 is also a pretty damn good video card. And they are saying also that the new video card that's going to be going for about $500, which is, I think, the 3070, is going to have 6 gigs of DDR RAM, but it's going to be equivalent to the RTX 2080, which is really a big deal when you consider that card goes for $1,200, and now you're getting one that goes for $500. That's got essentially the same specs. Technically, it's got like 2 gigs less RAM, but it's got more CUDA cores, so it's like equivalent, yada, whatever.
It's got 6 gigs of what spec RAM though? DDR 4, 5, 6, what?
6.
6. Okay, that's probably why. Because I think mine, I've got a 1080 in mine, and I think it's running 8 gigs of DDR4. I think so. It's fast memory speeds. That kind of makes a difference there too.
Yeah. Well, regardless, it looks like we got some good video cards coming out soon. And with that, we've covered pretty much everything I put in the show notes during my lunch hour. So yeah, how y'all doing?
I'm doing mostly okay.
You keep cutting it. Adrian, I don't know if you're watching the live stream, but you keep cutting in and out.
In and out and in.
Yeah, I know. Am I on right now?
Yeah,
Nope.
you are.
Cool.
You said like, yeah, I'm doing it, and then you dropped.
Crap. I need to replace this router probably. I may need to downgrade to my older router just because it fucking worked reliably.
You know, dude, I'm running a travel router that's really got shit specs, and it's running OpenWRT, and it's running like a freaking champ. So
I should probably. Damn, I'm slurring my speech.
maybe you should check out your router and see if there are any open firmware available for it that can replace the shit the manufacturer puts on there.
Likely, this thing is pretty high spec. It's okay. Yeah.
What do you have?
That would require me to get up and look at it. Shit, I don't even recall it.
192.168.11, and look at what the hell the page says.
Ah, shit. I'm pretty sure it's a TP link something, whatever. It was well reviewed on Amazon. That's why I bought it.
Does anybody here to change their default IP range, or does everybody keep it at 192.168.11?
For the moment, I've kept the default, but when I'm probably actually this year when Black Friday hits, I'm gonna buy the components to build a mini router and run pfSense. I'm probably gonna change to a 10.x range.
Yeah, it's a TP link something or other.
Oh, TP Link is kind of garbage for a lot of stuff.
Funny story, when I was doing the OSCP labs first time, I was running the same IP range as they use to assign to their VPN. So everything was all confused. It was great. I had to actually put my box, had to take it off bridged mode and then put it into what's it called? NAT mode, and then just like then I could connect to the VPN without it confusing my local addresses for remote addresses. Fun shit.
If y'all have a great recommendation for what I should get, let me know.
I mean, Linksys is still pretty good. There's a lot of good stuff from them. So
That's
check
a lot
them
of my
out.
previous stuff has been Linksys, and I gotta admit, it's been, I've upgraded over time several times, but maybe I should look at that.
Yeah.
The Nighthawk A66U is a really good one I've used.
Yeah. No, is that Nighthawk the brand, or is that?
It's made by Netgear, but
That's what I thought it was. Okay.
It's like they make it, but the whole it's like a sub thing, kind of like
right.
It owns a company.
I know.
Anything else for the show?
What?
Oh, do we have anything else for the show?
No, we finished the show notes. It only took like 2 hours and 17 minutes.
All right, let's go off.
I got one thing you might want to put out there that's kind of interesting.
All right.
Vegas centric. It's been caught on Twitter. Casinos are starting to keep the change on voucher redemptions. A lot of the slot machines and such, they give out little vouchers for instead of giving out physical coins. People are getting vouchers for like $18.75, and when they cash them out, they're getting $18 back.
Oh, that's shit.
And
you're from Vegas, aren't you?
Somebody has a Da Vinci worm in there.
There's two different stories on it. One casino came forward and said they were donating it to charity. Another has just been quiet about it. And the thing is, it only happens when you go to the automated redemption systems. If you go to the cage, you will get your 75 cents.
But then you gotta wait online for the cage.
If you go onto Twitter and just put in Vegas change, you'll see people have been uploading copies of their receipts.
Shit. And Delici, aren't you from Vegas?
Yeah, I'm there right now.
Okay. I heard that got hit pretty bad by the COVID.
It depends on how you look at it. COVID itself isn't hitting us so bad as the blatant loss of jobs and the incompetence of the unemployment people. There are people who have been waiting 12 to 14 weeks for their unemployment checks, like their first ones. And they just yesterday passed an extension on the moratorium on evictions.
Shit. I've been seeing pictures from the area, and the pictures make it look like a barren wasteland of no one showing up.
It is. There are two things that are happening with that, though. There's been an uptick in scooter gangs, which is kind of funny.
What the fuck is a scooter gang? And it doesn't sound very intimidating.
Do you know what a scooter, the little mobility scooters like cripples like me use?
Okay, yeah, big idea what those are.
Nobody, people who have absolutely no disabilities whatsoever are renting them and terrassing up and down the strip and in casinos, and they're getting shit-faced and tearing up the casinos in these motorized scooters.
That sounds like a good time, actually. I should go there.
It's been done at DEF CON for years, but there's video footage of people literally on the streets, a crowd of like 10 or 15 people in scooters running red lights and fucking off down the streets.
I gotta show Young Grump's post. That's just fucking funny. Yes, that's some weird shit, man. I agree.
And the other shit you don't see is the amount of fights that are starting to come out. South Point had a fight in their bowling alley where the people were actually using bowling balls to hit each other.
Damn.
They were swinging and throwing bowling balls. The epitome of pinky out while you drink your tea, people, the Fashion Show Mall, had a couple of street gang fights in it. Started out as 3-on-1, came back to 3-on-4, and then 4-on-4.
I mean, you should get one of these.
One of which?
Look at the screen.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you something about that shit. First of all, that's unobtainium. That shit doesn't even exist except for demo models. And the ones that are like that are in excess of $18,000 to $20,000.
Shit. I tried to tell my brother to lose some weight and get in better shape so he can get around easier, but he won't listen to me. And I'm a chubby motherfucker right now myself, even though I use the title Irongeek back from my days when I used to be big into weightlifting.
You know, riding in one of those things has nothing to do with your stomach, right?
In some cases, dude, they're all people.
Yeah, okay. Tell you what, people who grew up in the 90s, at 32 years old, sucking their mom's tit and watching Wall-E, thinks that everybody in the scooter is just some kind of fat person who is lazy and doesn't want to do anything. And you know what I do when I find those people? I hit them with large, solid objects. Because I have a degenerative spine disorder
that
has left me unable to walk, but the first thing everyone does is point at my stomach and go, you need to lose some weight and stop eating at McDonald's. Yeah. And that's when I start beating people down because I got tired of hearing that over the years.
And there are some people who legitimately have to have them and they're necessary and so forth. But in some people's cases, I've seen it is largely because of diet and exercise routines.
I'm not. You're not wrong, but the thing is, people assume that shit. I went 8 years of people pointing at my stomach before they found out that there was a problem with my spine.
Yeah, if I was a handicapped person, I'd guarantee you I'd be 100 pounds heavier because that would limit so much of what I do for exercise.
Yeah, it does. And the thing is, people say, quit. Doctors, quit going to buffets, quit eating at McDonald's. Like, I don't eat that shit. What are you talking about? Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. Why did you find out what's really wrong? Oh, you've got spinal stenosis. We've got to cut you open and fuck with your spine, and maybe you'll be able to walk for 5 years. Yeah, I see that shit all the time, and it's why I hardly ever go out anymore. God help you if you go in one of those things, because you will get the hipsters all up your ass. You're a burden on society. Don't forget, guys in 303 told me I should go kill myself so I wouldn't be a burden on the scene anymore.
Oh shit!
Monty and his little crew threw that down on me last year at DEF CON.
That's pretty fucked up.
So, that's the kind of thing you got to deal with shit like that. Now, that monster right there, there's one that's similar to that, but it's still got wheels, instead of tire tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a 6-wheeler, and it's $18,000 right
That's
off the
pretty
dot.
badass, though. I would totally want one of those.
People think they like to think that insurance pays for it, but they don't. If you're lucky, the most insurance will put out is $7 or $8,000 for one, and that will get you a decent unit. Don't get me wrong, but you're not going to go anywhere with it. And wheelchairs are not designed for sidewalks and roads, and scooters are not designed for buildings and elevators. So that's why I keep bugging the shit out of Elon Musk to get a Tesla wheelchair built.
Yeah, the ADA only goes so far on some things.
ADA doesn't mean shit. Okay.
Okay, I'm not handicapped.
I'll tell you why.
So,
ADA sets limits. Okay, your doorways have to be X wide. You have to have X many ramps, and people will literally keep it to exactly that size. But the manufacturers of the chairs and the scooters don't care, and they make them that don't fit into the ADA standards, or they fit so closely that there's literally no room. The monorail in Las Vegas scraped the paint off the side of my chair and tore one of the knobs off. That's how tight of a fit it was to get onto that. Forget taxis. Taxis, they say they're handicap ready. What they've got is a Prius, and somebody soldered a ramp onto the back of it. You got to put your head down between your legs and suck yourself off if you want to fit inside of that thing.
Shit.
And actual handicap-equipped vehicles, the ones that are professional, non-emergency ambulatory transports, upwards of $150 each way to where you're going. This is why I started doing HDA, Hackers with Disabilities.
Okay, I didn't know about this charity. You got a URL you can give us?
It's not a charity. It was just a group at DEF CON. And 2 years, not this year. We didn't do anything this year, but last year, the previous year, we had banners and flags and shit. We were planning parties for this year. And we were getting together all the people who attend DEF CON who have disabilities of one kind or another. HDA was after the old hard drive nomenclature, HDA 0. Okay. So, Hackers with Disabilities. And we had Eddie Mize donated some really killer art for the flags. And so all the scooters had these really kick-ass, tech-looking flags and stuff. And there was supposed to be this year an actual village. We were going to be talking about hacking wheelchairs and hacking scooters because, oddly enough, they are hackable. There's a special dongle you can get that allows you to put it into a setup mode to set things like maximum speeds, braking capacities, and regenerative charging. There's a lot of fun stuff. My particular chair has been nicknamed Rolling Thunder. It's got two Raspberry Pi 3s on the back end of it. One of them runs Kali with a set of Russian antennas, and the other one runs Pirate Box for file sharing.
You haven't armed it with miniguns yet?
Nope, no miniguns. I do have the 40 cal, but that's there you go. There's the HDA artwork. I do have the 40 cal attached to it, but no miniguns.
Frank, I think you don't want the screen share going. Toss that link in the show notes.
Say again?
Okay.
I think
that's just the DEF CON forums from 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Just give anybody information about the group if they're
I was trying to find something on it.
We actually were getting some support. Some folks were willing to donate money towards it, and we actually were going to have Voice Coil come out and play for our party. I don't know if you've heard of Voice Coil.
I'm not familiar with them, no.
They're an awesome little industrial band, and the lead singer is legally blind. The guy who does all the music for the band, all the programming, the vocals, everything, is just an amazing human being and also completely legally blind. They're on Bandcamp.
Okay.
Whoa.
That's a good shout out for the end of the cast. Has anybody got anything else for the cast before we go offline? Offline.
Nope. Did this pretty nasty thing in my county. Like, if you signed up to do the voting by mail, you had to fill out a form and send it to the people who do the voting shit, and I filled it out, and I got a few things in the mail to do some voting and some local shit, and then they told me now I have to fill it out again because of some presidential mandate that anybody who wants to do mail-in voting has to re-register. Messed up.
Yeah, well, 'tis the season. We've got census people crawling over our building right now.
Yeah, I didn't know how to fill out the census thing because I live in a house that's got it's like a 2-family, and I had the lower half, and like there's no place in there to say I live alone in my own apartment, but also somebody else is at the same address. Like it's either you're the only one in this address, or that's it. There's no other option.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put on the only one here. And I guess when the other person does theirs, they'll say they're the only one here. The form is stupid.
You gotta have fun somehow.
Yeah, I plan on going in and voting in person myself, but
Yeah, I prefer to do it by mail if I can.
and I've heard various things about people say, "Oh, vote by mail is the vote by mail." What's the right term? Infringing and not working is a myth. Never heard other people say that it is an issue. I don't know. I just plan on going in person myself.
Yeah, there was a big to-do over the last couple of weeks about certain key areas where the automated mail sorters were being decommissioned and moved around or shut down, and then that story just went off of the horizon really quick.
Yes, there was actually a couple of articles I saw of local post offices, not local to me, but like from local news outlets in other states, saying that their post office reinstalled the machines against orders and they refused to keep them non-operational for some stupid mandate.
I assume a lot of media is based on what gets the most clicks, and that's why you see certain stories come up and certain stories disappear.
Yeah, but this kind of thing with them ripping the sorting machines out of post office, like I think that's really retarded because that's just going to hurt us in the long run. We're going to need to put them back. I mean, you can't operate a post office nowadays with all the amount of mail that comes through there and not have some kind of machine sort it. So, fucking stupid.
But the U.S. Postal Service has been running at a deficit for many years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, but the reason that is because the government made them pre-fund their pension. So they had to pay for like $80 million 1 year for no reason. Or was it 800 million? Something crazy. Like they had to essentially pre-fund every single employee they have now, plus every employee they plan to hire. All of them need to have their pensions paid in full that year. And that just put them in a deficit. Fucking stupid.
Shit.
So, Young Grump wants to know more about your Russian antennas.
Oh, it's just the what are they called? Apex or something like that. The ones you get. I gotta go. Actually, get out of the chair and look at the back to get the actual name. It's a dual. It's a quad antenna set. Alpha. That's it. There you go. It's the Alpha that I have.
Yeah, the Alphas are decent antennas.
Let me see. I want to say it's the 4T4R, but it could be. Yeah, I think it's the 4T4R is the one I've got.
Also, Jason Daniel Stone says he loves us all, and
We love you too, Jason. We love you long time. Mm-hmm.
The one thing I found out is
If
that
you gotta move, man. Come to Indiana. If I don't know how many family you got, but I got a spare room. You can, hang out for a bit before you find your own place.
I'm not really sure how this works, in people's heads, but nobody seems to actually think anything. Like when you're de-authing everything within a 30-foot radius, nobody looks at the guy in the wheelchair.
I probably would because I'm an asshole. But I had some de-offing shit when I was trying to upload videos at a certain conference, and I'm like, motherfucker, stop that shit.
This little fucker right here can de-auth everybody in 30 feet. This is a little ASP8266 Node MCU dev board. You just pop the de-author firmware. Not really firmware. So you download the code from GitHub and you push it to this little thing in your Arduino programmer, and then you can deauth whoever the fuck you want.
Oh, have you seen Flipper was fully funded?
Yeah, I'm debating about it. It sounds kind of cool, but at the same time,
I actually backed that. They took the money out of my account for it.
Also, I don't want to deal with can I replace the damn dolphin or whatever it is with a hedgehog?
Fuck no.
Fuck that. Hey,
have you ever seen Johnny Mnemonic? I mean, come on.
Don't be hedge phobic. I like hedgehogs better than I do dolphins.
Well, I mean, okay, but you know what is Sonic the Hedgehog known for?
I don't
besides,
like
chili dogs and pornography.
Sonic is not my thing. I don't like Sonic. I like my hedgehogs to be African pygmy hedgehogs.
Oh, okay.
European ones are okay too, but
well, supposedly the firmware is totally open source, so you could probably go out there and diddle with it and put a hedgehog in there.
Okay.
I mean, I have a stuffed dolphin over my work gear, yeah, and it's just Loop It Through Jones. He's like a Cat 5 running up his ass because I saw the movie.
Maybe a raccoon. I don't know. I like both those critters, raccoons and hedgehogs. All right, I think we've about done with the cast. Anybody have anything else to say on air before I go off air and we can start talking some serious trash?
Oh yeah.
One thing, if Flipper does actually get shipped, I want to have somebody who's a decent coder fix this code that Sammy Camcar uploaded for Open Sesame to open any garage door, or most garage doors, that he coded for this little iMe thing that uses pretty much the same chipset as that thing. I want to port that code over and actually get it working because he intentionally crippled this code, but most of the stuff's still there. It'd be really cool to have that work on there. That's all I have to say about that.
All right. Well, I guess that's then Forrest Gump out. Y'all catch us next Wednesday. We'll be doing this thing bullshit next week.
Hoorah.
Hoorah!
Bye, folks.
Later, Gator.